What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show tonight, joined by JD, and we're going to go over the early signing day commits that North Texas has brought in. And guys, before we get into all that, you guys already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football recruiting, G5 football, transfer portal, any or all of the above, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. Also, JD, right after this, is going to go on GoMeanGreen.com podcast, right? Go Mean Green.
Yeah, it's usually the barbershop podcast, but tonight it's going to be a strictly recruiting show. And we'll probably talk about the bowl game a little bit, but yep.
Okay. Yeah. So you can go to Apple, type in Go Mean Green, or wherever you do your podcast at, and check that out too, because I'm sure they will have a deeper dive into a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here and maybe some different perspectives. So be sure to check out that as well. All right, JD. Well, thanks for hopping on. And yeah, so I mean, before we get into this, I mean, getting closer to the bowl game, and and after early signing day, what are your feelings about the state of the program and everything that's going on?
Excited. I mean, it's. I think if we'd have talked, or when we did talk, 6-7 weeks ago, I never thought we'd be here. So I mean, it's exciting. We're still playing football in December. Teams getting extra practices. And it's exciting. I think they added some talent yesterday. So all in all, I think it's the program seems like it's kind of trending up right now for sure, or on the bounce back, on the mend, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think John Fields asked Coach Luttrell in their presser yesterday that, how many scholarships do we have left? And I think Coach Luttrell said 12 or 14, if I'm remembering correctly. And let's just hypothetically say it's 12. With those 12 left, do you think that's going to be 100% transfer portal kids, or do you think we see some other high school kids that haven't come into yet that, that they might pursue?
Just by the offers they've got out right now, I would say hypothetically they signed 14 kids. I would say at least 10 of them are going to be transferred JUCO guys. I think that, the roster being as young as it is, we've talked about it a ton that, over 2/3 of the roster is freshmen and sophomores. I think that, we can risk taking a chance on some older guys. But yeah, I think, with the state of college football in right now and the amount of talent in the portal, it would not surprise me, 10, 12 of those remaining spots are used on portal/JUCO guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into these recruits, and we'll start off with defense, save the quarterbacks for the very last, and kind of just go from there. So the first guy, Ethan, and I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names, Weslowski, coming out of McKinney Boyd, 6'1", 225 linebacker. Had his offer from Air Force, Navy, Texas Southern. Not the longest offer list, I guess you could say, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know too much about Ethan. Can't really say too much one way or the other. I know some of his coaches were talking very glowingly of him. Obviously, a lot of coaches will do that, though. So, anyway, any insight on Ethan?
I think talented kid. I've seen a lot of people post that he could have been the steal of this class, steal of Texas. I think he's got a ton of upside. With his size, could stay at linebacker. Could also move down to end. So I think there's a lot of position flexibility there. But yeah, I would say probably out of the high school kids, he's one of the ones I'm most excited about. I think it was a guy that the staff was battling till late to get him, and I think they were pretty excited to get him to sign on the dotted line. I think he's one of those kids that if he would have waited till February, potentially could have been a Power 5 type guy. So I think he's one of the ones that you're glad you got ahead of the curve, got him signed, sealed, and got him on the books.
Interesting stuff. So being that he's coming out of high school, going to be a true freshman kid, do you think he's a developmental guy? Like we'll see him maybe 2 years down the road, really kind of, present his talents on the field, or do you think could be an instant impact kind of player?
Out of the 5 high school signings, I think he'd be one of the top that I would think could probably see the field first. I still think that the linebacker room, losing potentially losing some guys, whether it be the portal, whether graduating, that could be play a big deal in it. But I think he's got the talent, but at the same time, with us potentially bringing some portal guys, I would be surprised if see some special teams play from him next year. But um, you know, I doubt he breaks the two deep. But if he does, it's pretty impressive for a true freshman.
Yeah. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, developmental guy, that is not a bad term. I mean, I hope nobody thinks that is a dig at anybody if we say they're a developmental guy, in our opinion.
Yeah,
So, no,
not at all. And it kind of sucks in today's football because it's hard to get developmental guys because there's so many guys you see sign, they redshirt the first year and then they're back in the portal. So I think the days of getting a kid, grooming him for 1, 2, 3 years and his junior senior year, dominating is a thing of the past. I think it's going to be hard to get those guys. So you kind of either got to get guys that you can get on the field pretty quickly, or get guys that are bought into the program and willing to wait their turn.
yeah, absolutely. All right, moving down to our next commit, also on the defensive side, defensive line, Tom Tribb. And I was listening to John Fields and Matthew Bruni talk about this class earlier today, and John said, made the statement that he was the 8th ranked defensive line in the nation out of JUCO, and so that's interesting. I mean, held offers from us in Ball State, so I mean, coming out of JUCO, I mean, I would think that this is hoped to be an instant impact guy. Hopefully cracking that 2 deep roster at D line, and 6'3", 270. I mean, he's a pretty big guy, and kind of excited, to see, what he can come in and hopefully do and contribute to this team. But what are your thoughts on Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably besides the quarterbacks, I think he's got the best shot of coming in and being an immediate impact guy. I mean, you watch his film, I would say he definitely classifies as a freak type. We see a lot of times, you see guys sign, you're like, man, they may not have the biggest, the flashiest offer list. It means they're not the talented. He's a guy that I think, it was a big deal for us to get him signed in this early period. There were some big teams that I was hearing were snooping around, were trying to get him to hold off, potentially. Like I said, he's one of those guys, if he doesn't sign yesterday, I mean, he could have went Power 5 as well, but I think he's got the top talent, in 3 years left to play, that he could come in here and, potentially be an all-conference top player year one. So, I mean, I think he's definitely got some high upside, but pretty low floor as well.
Yeah,
or high floor. I'm not sure how you say that.
Yeah, whatever. You're making me think we're going to win the conference next year. Everybody. All right. So moving down, Jax Van Zant. I think it was our only high school recruit out of state, coming out of Alabama. I think Thompson High School. I'm not sure. One thing interesting, I mean, he did hold a Maryland offer at one point, as well as UAB. Everybody likes to brag, I feel like, whenever they pluck a kid out of Texas and out of Denton or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of nice to, go out and steal one from, a conference foe in UAB and their own backyard, if you will. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Jax Van Zandt? And I mean, I think he's a developmental guy come in, and I mean, we'll see. I mean, there might be some need at linebacker, hopefully not, too soon, but you never know.
Yeah.
And, what are your thoughts with Jackson and what he brings to this team?
I mean, I'm not going to try to act like I'm a world champion evaluator, but what I'll say is, UAB thought he was good enough for an offer, and they've been arguably probably the best defense in our conference the last, 5-10 years. And Phil Bennett's arguably probably one of the best defensive coordinators. Those two guys approved of him. He's good in my book. I mean, I think I know Coach Luttrell spoke in the press conference yesterday. He's like a 2-time team captain. He won a couple state championships at Thompson. So, I mean, he's a kid. I think he can come in like Ethan. I think they can both, day one compete and play on special teams and potentially, see the field pretty early. I mean, it's like I said, UAB offer and Phil Bennett signing off on him. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. All right. One of our later editions, our later verbal editions, you and I did a video about him and Cam Robertson. And, I mean, really flashed a lot of potential earlier in his high school career and held offers from Arizona State, Utah, Houston, Indiana. I mean, a long list of schools, Kansas, UTSA. I mean, just a lot of people were vying for his services. And, I mean, I do think he is a developmental kid, and I mean that in the best way possible. I mean, I think the ceiling, the potential ceiling for him is very, very high. Uh, I just think it will take maybe a solid 2 years to get him there, with as far as probably putting on some good, collegiate muscle, and learning his fit in the defense, and so on and so on. But a very intriguing pickup, in my opinion, and someone that I guess the new measuring stick is, can he maybe develop into a Murphy twin down the road, and see kind of how that shakes out. But what are your thoughts on Cam Robertson?
Yeah, I mean, he is, he's probably got the best offer list of anybody that we signed. We talked about him before, but I think he's um, probably one of the most talented guys we got in the class. And then, like you said, I mean, I think, put him behind the Murphy twins, let him train, let him, learn the tools of the trade. And hopefully when those guys are done here in about 3 years, he'll be ready to step in. And like I said, I think he can get some playing time with them, because I know Bennett seems like he run, changes those guys in and out, keeps them rested. So, I mean, hopefully you see the field pretty quick, but, um, talented kid. Watching his film at Plano, I mean, he's a pretty exciting prospect. I mean, he's got unbelievable measurables, and twitchy, and quick off the edge. So good, exciting prospect for sure.
Yeah. All right, flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, we've got our first one. Damien Smallwood was 1 point a commit, then decommitted. Kind of looked like he was going to go to Liberty, then jumps back in. It's 6'4", 330 pounds, big kid, and I believe he's an interior offensive lineman. I think so. Anyway,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that'll be good. I think it's always good to pick up decent offensive linemen. We obviously got a heck of a pickup last year in Gabe Blair,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully Damien can come in, learn the system. And I do think he's another developmental guy, and who knows, year or two down the road, maybe really be a key contributor on that offensive line that has seen a lot of success under Mike Blesh and whatnot. But what are your thoughts on Damien?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Gabe set the bar pretty high last year for a freshman coming in and starting and dominating. And I don't want to put that kind of pressure on Smallwood. I mean, Smallwood's a large human. I think that he comes in, works on a few technique things. I mean, there's potentially some holes in the offensive line, moving forward the next year or two. So, he could slide in and play pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, he's a people mover. He is. Especially the way we're doing this run, the run style. If we continue doing that, I mean, he's a big mauler. So I mean, he could work his way up the depth chart pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So next is Quaylon Powell, if I'm saying that right, I hope, out of South Oak Cliff. I think they're about to play for state. If by the time we're doing this video, I think, or they might be playing now. I'm not sure. But anyway, his team's in the state championship for 5A, I think. So that's a pretty big deal here in Texas, as we all know. And yeah, I mean, I think Quaylon, I mean, a lot of people have been kind of comparing him to Torrey, just in their stature and everything. He's 5'7", 180 pounds. Obviously not as heavy as Torrey yet, but maybe could develop into that. And I think, the attractive thing about Quaylon is just his speed. And, this, if you watch his highlight film, if you haven't yet, that there's just a lot of twitch with him, and a lot of burst that, I would kind of probably peg this as another developmental guy, just because, where we're at in our running back room. But, I mean, as far as what Torrey was going to be, the H back or whatever, that, he didn't get to play this year because of the loss of Attaway, but maybe Quaylon could be a fit for that somewhere down the road, and maybe also get involved in the pass game. I'm not sure how his hands are, and his ability to catch the football, if it's, someone that could be utilized in the slot, or not. But interesting though, I think, and again, if you're fast like that, you can always contribute on special teams. So interesting, and I think there's some potential there. But what are your thoughts with Quaylon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the DeAndre Torrey comparisons are pretty accurate. I mean, you look at his film; they've got a lot of similarities. I think he's going to be a chance to play quicker than you think, just because I mean, he's got a chance to become, kind of that change of pace back. If you look at the Tory leaves this year, the depth chart, Attaway's 6', 220. Akai Rajadell, 6', 215. Isaiah Johnson, 6', 215. Keith Jackson's 5'11", 208. So, I mean, I think you're going to need a contemporary back to come in there, kind of change it up. So, I mean, I think he's got a, potential to play, like I think I've said on all these, that to play pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, get him in. He's electric. Find a way to get in the ball somehow. If it's putting him in the slot, special teams, because I think if you watch his film, he makes exciting stuff happen when he gets the ball in his hand.
Absolutely. All right, so going down the line, I think the rest are transfer portal kids. So got Jay Macklin, cousin of none other than, who is his cousin? Jeremy Macklin. That's right. And, it was a first round draft pick, all that. And so that's great. But man, for Jay Macklin, I feel like he's a textbook. Really wish he would have came to North Texas right out of high school. Highly rated coming out of high school. I think he's been at Missouri the past 2 years. Don't really think he's seen the field too much, but man, I mean, the potential's there. I mean, he definitely, I mean, cannot deny the potential. Watch his high school highlights if you haven't already. Definitely a lot of potential there. We just got to hope that, he can rise to the occasion once he gets here. And, I'm sure he's maturer than probably he was coming out of high school, being that he's 2 years, into college and, kind of more of that business, football mindset, I guess, if you will. But yeah, so I'm really, hopefully Jay Macklin can come in and be an instant impact, player. I think we, need some wide receiver depth. I think we had a lot coming into the season, and through injuries and off-field issues or whatever, gotten a little thin there. So hopefully Macklin can come in and do that. But what are your thoughts on Macklin? Do you think he will? Do you think he's going to be a starter day one next year, or what are your thoughts on that?
As deep as our wide receiver room is, but we've seen with this year with injuries. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's hit the field by game 4. The first thing I seen was like, man, he hadn't played that much at Missouri. But then you also got to remember, SEC schools, their depth charts are insane. I mean, you look at a guy like Tommy Bush. I mean, he didn't get to see the field much at Georgia. So, I mean, I'm not going to hold that against him. But, yeah, I mean, I think that even though it is a talented wide receiver room, he's got the type of skills, watching his film, that he could be a difference maker. Mm-hmm. And, we had some drops. We had trouble getting, wide receivers the ball this year at the same time. So, I mean, I think there is a chance. I mean, our top receiver probably from start to finish this year was a walk-on. So, I mean, I think that we could, Jay's got, a great shot to come in and compete day one. It's just a matter of, make the most of his opportunities.
Yeah. All right. Next, getting into the quarterbacks. First transfer out of Louisiana Tech, J.D. Head. So kind of an interesting pickup in my opinion. I mean, stats are not everything by any means, but I mean, they're somewhat of an indicator. And, he's coming in with a 53.4% completion rate, 6 touchdowns to 3 INTs. I was talking with a Louisiana Tech fan that I will leave unnamed because I did not ask him if I could share this, but he said, I don't have the quote pulled up. Essentially, that JD Head showed at times that just, wow, he should be the starting quarterback today, right now, from the jump. I mean, just tremendous, see a high ceiling, and just they really liked what they saw. And then at other times, the decision making was just kind of like, what are you doing? And I mean, he was young though, so we kind of got to give him that. But what are your thoughts on going out and pursuing? I don't know. I guess he was a second or third string guy for Louisiana Tech, and kind of just going to pursue something like that. I mean, are you a fan of that? I mean, do you think he's going to come in and really compete with this mysterious quarterback room that we have no idea what's going to look like after the bowl game? But my God, I mean, it might be wide open. So what are your thoughts on JD Head and their thoughts on pursuing him specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a super talented kid. I think that, I was one of the ones that was, I really liked him when he came out of Pearland. I even said this when he committed. I didn't think he would be the only quarterback we bring in. Um, just because I think after this year, I think that the staff wanted to bring in some guys to be able to compete for the job. I think with the transfer rules, with the COVID year, I mean, this is technically like bringing in a high school, freshman. I mean, he's got years of eligibility left, but at the same time, he's got Conference USA playing experience. So I mean, it's not like you're bringing in a true freshman that's, hasn't played the Division I football level. So I think that's a bonus. But yeah, I mean, just like I said, coming out of Pearland, the kid, if we'd have signed him out of high school, I'd have been stoked. So getting him a year or two later with some experience under his belt, I think Skip Holtz has done great the last 10 years on finding Conference USA quarterbacks. So I think he's got high upside. I don't know if he comes in and takes the starting role day one, but I mean he could be one that we look up a year or two down the road. He's Conference USA will be the American, offensive player of the year.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Quite possibly. Very exciting. All right. Then the last addition on our own list here is Stone Earl. I think he might have been one of the most intriguing, routes to North Texas on the list so far. A little bit of a backstory, maybe a bit of a homer with him. He's coming out of where I went to high school, Birdville High School, and his dad actually played in the NFL, John Earl, and served as a bit of a mentor for the football program the years that I was there. I never overlapped with Stone. He was probably 7th, 8th grade when I was a senior. And anyway, good kid, comes from a really good family. So we'll see. But, Stone Earl coming out of Abilene Christian, he was a 2020 kid. And, some of us may remember the 2020 season for FCS schools. They played in like the spring. They played like 4 games or something. And that was his kind of a weird, wacky thing. But his true freshman spring year, he had a completion rate of 63.6, only 33 attempts and 21, completions for 173 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, but again, to get in as a true freshman, doing that, and it's pretty impressive. And then 2021, 65.8% completion, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, just a shade over 1,200 yards. And again, he's doing that as, I guess, a redshirt freshman or a COVID freshman, whatever. Moral of the story is really young kid to be seeing the field so much as a quarterback. Again, yeah, it is FCS, but I mean, FCS is not, any type of slouch, and especially at the QB position. I would be interested to see if he would have stayed at Abilene Christian, what kind of numbers he would have put up, as the years go on, and towards the end of his career, would he, be putting up Bailey Zappi numbers in the FCS ranks? I mean, that's kind of, Bailey Zappi might be one of the best FCS QBs, so that might be a little bit of an unfair attempt to compare. But anyway, I'm interested in Stone. I mean, just for the, I like the FCS route to D1. I mean, I think it's going to become more popular. But what are your thoughts on Stone Earl and what he brings?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zappi's a good name to throw out there. The thing I've seen and heard with Earl is, if he stayed at Abilene Christian another year, I mean, could he be going to Power 5? I mean, could he move? I know Zappi went to Western Kentucky with his offensive coordinator. If his offensive coordinator went somewhere else, would he have ended up at Western Kentucky? I mean, he had the talent, but, after a guy has that kind of success, I think, more and more teams are looking at the FCS level for transfers. I mean, Cameron Ward is a quarterback from Incarnate Word that is blowing up right now. I mean, he could be the hottest, transfer portal quarterback on the market. And Stone Earl, like you said, if he went one more season, you're going to think, his numbers are naturally going to progress. I don't know if North Texas has a shot at him, this time next year. So getting him now, potentially maybe a year early before his blow up. But I mean, I think just watching his film at Abilene Christian, he's got the arm talent, the ability to read defenses. I mean, it would not surprise me if he comes out this spring and wins the starting job. I mean, I think he's got that kind of talent, and I don't think it's that big a jump from FCS to the FBS. I mean, I think there's that gap has been closed quite a bit the last few years. So I mean, like I said, I think I'd probably if we had our choice, we'd have took a senior that had 4 years of starting experience or whatever you want to say. But I like him. I think it's a kid that's still progressing, still getting better, and still got a ton of eligibility left. So sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Stone Earl, Tom Tribb are probably, I would say, the two signings that I'm the most excited about. I mean, I think those are, anytime you get guys that could come in day one and start and improve your football team, are huge additions on National Signing Day for sure.
Absolutely. Two last questions for you. One, do you think we pursue another quarterback?
I think it all depends on what happens with the quarterback room. I think if Ani decides to come back, Martin. I mean, if 2, 3, quarterbacks hit the portal, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to bring in another guy. I mean, I know we've already offered a high school kid a preferred walk-on, which we've seen those, be able to turn into full scholarships. But yeah, I think it would have to take, another guy or two leaving the quarterback room to bring in, because I know that room was pretty full to begin with. But depending on who it is and how many of them leave, yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me to bring in another guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. Who won early signing day in the recruiting ranks, defense or offense?
Man, I'm probably going to have to go defense.
Okay.
There was, I know we went for some transfer cornerbacks. We lost Savage there at the end. Andre Sam was the guy that we were in on. I think you land those two guys with Tribb, and that's 3 day one starters. I think that, hands down, that's a win. But I think Tribb and then, Robertson, Van Zant, Weslowski, those are all guys with, and nothing against the guys we got on offense, but I think, those 4 are probably the most excited about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I would have gave it to offense. I would have said with the 2 pickups on the QBs, and I don't know, with Quaylon and Jay, I would have said offense. So either way,
and
that's good. We're
that can go
split.
either way. I mean,
Yeah.
I say that, Trim's the day one starter. You look at the offense, Macklin, say Head or Stone wins the quarterback job. I mean, you got 2 day one starters right there. So I mean, the offense wins. So yeah, it's 50-50. And I think
Yeah.
the most exciting thing about this is, being a guy that covers recruiting. I mean, it's almost as fun to me watching the recruiting battles, figuring out new players, watching film, as it is watching the actual games. So most of the time, this time of year after signing day, our class is full and it's pretty boring until fall. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of like back in the day where you had all the way till February signing day. So for me, I know a lot of fans are upset that we didn't go out and sign 22 players, yesterday. But for me, it's exciting that it kind of drags out a little longer. You get to enjoy recruitment another 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. But all right,
And,
JD. Oh, sorry.
no, I was just the last thing I was going to say that I think we're already seeing it a little bit, but I think after the bowl season, the portal is going to even be more crazy. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have 14 spots left. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'll say, in a perfect world, I like all the portal kids to get here for spring football, but maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll see.
Yeah.
But all right, JD. Well, I'm sure we'll jump on once again before the bowl game. And, thank you for your time. Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.